So, first and foremost, salaries don't start or salary conversations don't start at the offer stage. They actually start with your very first interaction with the organization. So I want folks to think about this a little bit differently. You're adding value from day one in how you interact with the person that's reaching out to you.
Welcome to Real Money, Real Life, the podcast where we get real about money and the messy human stuff that comes with it. I'm Linda Grizzly, financial educator and your Me Money guide to financial clarity. Each week, we dive into financial concepts and money strategies, but we always tie it back to real life, emotions, mindset, and how money actually shows up day to day. If you're ready for practical tools, mindset shifts, and honest conversations that meet you where you are, not where the world thinks you should be, you're in the right place. Because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you use it. No judgment, no lectures, and definitely no putting yourself last. If you're listening, you're one of the real ones, the ones ready to stop settling for less and finally claim the value you bring to the table. This episode will focus on how to approach salary negotiation with clarity and confidence, from preparing for the conversation to navigating objections, all while keeping your values, well-being, and long-term financial goals in mind. Today's guest is Jenn Smith. Jenn believes career success doesn't have to be at the expense of a radiantly happy and healthy lifestyle. As a sought-after career and HR consultant with professional roots grounded deep within corporate America, Jenn brings over 15 years of progressive global HR leadership experience across multiple industries and Fortune 200 companies. Now, as the founder of Flourish Careers and the host of the Flourish Careers podcast, Jenn is on a mission to support heart-based, career-minded professionals in navigating the changing world of work and taking the right steps toward a happier and healthier career. Jenn also has an unshakable love for books, notebooks, pens, and planners. She's all in, whether it's the crisp pages of a new notebook, the perfect smooth glide of a gel pen, or the thrill of organizing her thoughts in a fresh planner. She embraces this notebook nerd identity and believes there's nothing quite like putting pen to paper to spark creativity. When she's not working, you can find Jenn road tripping with her pack, husband and pup, exploring all Western New York offers. Welcome, Jenn.
Thanks, Linda. It's a joy to be here with you today.
Yeah, I'm so glad you could join us because I know this is, especially right now during these times, such a big topic. Like if you're on LinkedIn, you see all the people that are searching for jobs right now, and people are wondering what they're worth, how they can get back into the workforce. They've been laid off from jobs they've had for a long time. There's just a different feeling and vibe when you get on LinkedIn right now. So this is a great topic to be talking about. But let's still focus a little bit on you. Tell us about how your HR background led you into this specialization that you have today and helping people with salary negotiation and just career in their careers overall.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that question. So my background, I started my career in operations with Frito-Lay, which is part of PepsiCo. And then after a couple of years in operations, I decided I really wanted to focus more on the people side of the business. So I ended up making a pretty big pivot into human resources. And during that time, one of my first roles in HR actually was to recruit and hire frontline operations managers. And so from very early days, I sat on the other side of the table. So partnering with hiring managers, understanding compensation and kind of the back end on how recruiters shape offers. And then since then, I've hired literally thousands of professionals across all levels and functions and even industries. So my career spans food and beverage manufacturing, technology distribution, and then biotech from a corporate perspective. So I've seen kind of the other side of the table from multiple industries. And then within those roles, I've hired folks in operations, I've hired folks in finance, I've hired folks in, from entry level internships all the way up to, senior director, VP level across functions. So I have a really kind of like breadth and depth when it comes to understanding how companies attract, recruit, and hire top talent. So I know kind of firsthand how all this works.
Yeah, that's a lot of great experience. And for us on the other side of the table, especially women, the 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 biggest part of getting a job offer is that salary negotiation, and it's so intimidating.
Yeah.
So from I mean, I know what it feels like on this side of the table, and I've done a little bit of hiring in my life, but nothing compared to what you've done. So from the employer's perspective, what do you think, how are they really thinking when a candidate does ask for more?
Well, there's a couple things here that I want people to understand, like from an insider perspective. So, first and foremost, salaries don't start or salary conversations don't start at the offer stage. They actually start with your very first interaction with the organization. So I want folks to think about this a little bit differently. You know, you're adding value from day one in how you interact with the person that's reaching out to you. Are you bringing value to every single conversation you're having? That's really where the salary conversation starts, because by the time it gets to that offer conversation, you've already added value and they really want you on the team and they're going to do whatever it takes to get you in the door. So that's one thing I want folks to consider when it comes time for that, conversation. And then the other thing I want folks to consider is that when you're interviewing for a role, whether you're working with a dedicated recruiter or you're talking to the hiring manager or you're talking to peers that you're going to be working with, they want you on the team. So think about a time where we've all been there. We've all been on a team that was short staffed or understaffed, and everyone else has to pick up the work and close that gap. So I want folks to realize that you're there to fill a gap and they want you on the team. When I was a recruiter, here's the other thing. There's different types of recruiters, but I was an in-house recruiter for Fortune 50 companies. And as a recruiter, let's just say I was recruiting for, we'll just say a product manager job. That's one job, but I have probably 25 jobs or more that I'm recruiting for. So when I am interviewing somebody for that one job, I want them to get the job so I can move on to all of those other jobs that I'm recruiting for. So I want you to know, like, this doesn't have to be a combative thing. Like, it can be a conversation. It can be a collaboration throughout the process. So kind of shifting your mindset to the fact that, like, hey, this doesn't have to be this like adversarial thing. Like, they want me on the team. They need me on the team. Here's what I can contribute. So let's have a conversation versus it being like this kind of tit for tat thing. So that's some of like the mindset stuff and some of the insider, kind of scoop that I wanted to share there. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, that does help. And I know when I have been looking for jobs in the past, and it's getting more and more common, but most of them wouldn't put the salary range in there. And
Right.
so like you know that the company has some sort of budget that they're expecting for
Right.
this. But a lot of times the job title doesn't really speak, and even the job description doesn't really speak to what the pay might be. Like, what level is this job? Because one job title at one company can be the same job title in another company, but they can be on a completely different level.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
what is the best way to know what, like, I mean, what is the best way to work around that other than having the company place the salary range? Because there were times when I didn't apply to things because I'm like, I don't know what the salary range is. I'm not even going to bother because I don't want to waste our time.
Yeah, right. Yes, and you're right. So salary transparency laws are now in place. And so a lot of states and even cities have to put the ranges on there. And so that's actually not a bad place to start. Even if your state or city doesn't have a range, just go out there and look for similar job titles and look at the years of experience too. Because you're right, job titles mean completely different things at every single company. And there's 12,000 or more job titles across the United States. And so it's really hard to go by job title, but you can try to find and even just go by the function. So like product development, go look for product development roles in states where salary transparency laws are in place, like Colorado, New York City, and you can start to cross check and see what those ranges are based on the level too. And you can think of sometimes they'll say associate, which might mean more junior level, or they'll say senior, which obviously might mean a little bit more experience. And you can try to start to do the research on, okay, they're looking for this many years of experience and this is the range, and start just like making a chart or jotting that down. I think that's a really good place to start. And then the other thing, there's, lots of different websites you can go into, like salary.com. There's this one for tech roles. It's Salary FYI, I think it is. I'll have to look that one up for you. But there's a ton of different websites that are going to give you some type of information to at least start with. Now, I want to share with you a couple other things that companies will take into consideration when they're thinking about salary. So they're going to think about the market competitiveness for the role. So if you do something that's super niche, you can probably raise your rate, in terms of what the company is going to pay you. So you think about the market, also think of the location. So some cities like San Francisco, if you're in a tech role in San Francisco, there's going to be a pretty good competition, but it's also a very high cost of living. Versus if you live somewhere in Western New York, like I do, that salary range is going to be different because organizations just take location and cost of living into consideration. So think about that. I know it's a little bit tricky now with remote and things like that, hybrid, that kind of stuff coming into consideration. The other thing is internal equity. Now, this is a big one that I don't think job seekers understand. And inside an organization, if you're applying for, let's say, that product development role, and they have already 25 people in that job, they have to kind of place you where it makes sense based on your experience. You can't just automatically jump every single of those 25 people that have been there. And, based on so they kind of have to place you. So if you're asking for, let's say 150,000, but no one on that team is even close to that, they're not going to be able to bring you in at that level. So you have to do your research, understand, kind of what goes into it on the back end, and be reasonable about what you're looking for. So that's just some thoughts that I would say. Also know your numbers. So as a job seeker, like, know what your number is. Like, what is your walkaway number? What are those non-negotiables that you are, you must have in this offer? And you can also obviously think beyond the base salary. So like, the whole total rewards package, and just know what those non-negotiables are before you even go in, because then you're not going to waste anyone's time. You can get those answers either online or in a conversation, and then, either continue on in the process if those non-negotiables are going to be met or not. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's great advice. So I want to step a little bit into mindset here, because you talked about, knowing what you're worth. And part of my story is that I was underpaid for a very long time until I finally figured out that I was just accepting and asking for less. And people were giving it to me. They were giving me what I would take rather than what I was really worth. And I had this total mindset shift at one point where I was like, I'm just so underpaid. I'm doing like $150,000 job for like $45,000. It was ridiculous. And then I left and I landed a job for one that's base was like 175. And so I had made this huge jump because I finally knew what I was worth, but it took a lot of different steps for me to figure that out. And I kick myself because I look back and I know that I did the same thing a few other times too. So how, other than like you said, like looking up salaries and knowing that, how can someone else understand their worth and not feel like, you know what I'm trying to say? I'll let you talk.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it's really about you have to have community. You have to talk to other people. And that, I think that can help you from multiple different perspectives, whether that's, a community of it, like I was in multiple HR communities, whether that's an online community, whether that's a career coach, like whatever it is, like you need to like sometimes just kind of get outside your own head and have a conversation about it. And I think that goes a long way, just getting an outside perspective from someone that's going to give you an objective, like have an objective conversation with you and really has your best interest in mind, but isn't trying to protect you, or, isn't someone that has the belief of like, oh, be grateful for everything, that kind of thing. Like someone with that really objective opinion that can share like data with you, that can share real life situations with you. And I think that goes a long way. In our world of technology, you can find that just online by joining online communities. You don't even have to have a conversation. Like, you could find a forum that talks about this on Slack or whatever it is, especially like, women getting paid. There's a lot of communities around that where you can have those conversations and really talk to people that get it. And you can do that within your industry. You can do that if you're making a change into a new industry and really trying to understand, what your skills are and what value you bring. And so I think that those conversations are just super invaluable.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So let's go back to talking about the salary conversation.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the salary conversation comes up like the recruiter in the first phone call, even if it's not listed in the job description, they'll say, or maybe they'll still say it, but they'll say, this is the range. And is that okay with you? Or they will say, what is the number you're looking for? And that's always such a hard answer because like as a candidate, that's like the worst possible question you could ever ask me.
Yeah.
I'm like, ask me anything else. Ask me all the other stupid questions. But that's the hardest question because you want to flip it back and say, I know you have a budget for this. You tell me what your budget is and let's stop wasting each other's time. And if
Yeah,
I give you
that's
a
what
number, I already know that I've shot myself in the foot before by taking something that was much less. So I just, that to me is like the worst question.
It is. And I recommend doing what you just said. I would push back and say, what's the budget? What's the range for this role? Most people will tell you. And if they don't, if they play hardball, then I would say something like, I'd love to learn more about the role and responsibilities before talking numbers. And then just move on, And so, but if they really press, so if they really, really, really press and you're feeling like you have to give a range, like do the homework, give a range and then go from there. So don't stick with one number. Don't say, oh, I made 90,000 at my last job. And don't do that. Just say like, I'd really, expect to make between this and this. Like, I've done my research. I'd expect to make between this and this, and give that range. And it can be a range of 5, 10, 20, 25,000, whatever you want to do. But here's the thing too, in my world as a recruiter, I would do what you shared there first. Like, hey, the range for this role is 90 to 105,000. Is that acceptable to you? Yes or no, let's move on. Like, we did that in the initial phone screen. So there was no wasting of anyone's time. It was flat out on the table. We had that conversation and then moved on. And I feel most heart-based recruiters will do that. Like, they will be open and honest about it because let's be real, like, no one works for free. Everyone, if we're not volunteering here, like, no one works for free. We want to get paid, what we're worth and what we bring to the table. And so I'm a big, I really just encourage folks to have that conversation right up front.
And what happens if the recruiter says a range and you're at the very top of that range, and that top of that range is like, you don't want to max yourself out. Like, you don't want to take a job offer that's at the top of their range because then what, you never get a raise, then you're kind of stuck there. Tell me more about how that works. Like, could you ask for more? Could you start at the top and then do you still get raises after that?
Yeah, and you could ask because every company is going to have different policies when it comes to compensation. So you could even ask the question like, hey, when would this be reevaluated? Like, I'm really expecting to come in at the top of the range, like, but I don't want to max myself out. So when could this be reevaluated? I'll share a quick story. I remember there was a candidate that we were working with, and she was, we really wanted her on the team, and she came back. We kind of like, we talked about the salary. She came back, we made an offer. She came back with asking for more and started a conversation. She was very professional. It was a conversation. It wasn't combative or anything like that. But because of that internal equity issue, we weren't able to move on the base salary. But what we did was we ended up giving her a really nice sign-on bonus. And that moved us forward, like both of us forward. So although we weren't able to put it in her base, we gave her a big bonus right up front. And, that was good for her. It was good for us. And so that's actually one of the things I really like, a creative solution for folks, is to think of a sign-on bonus, because if your base is going to cause an internal equity issue, companies can do sign-on bonuses, whether it's a couple thousand or a lot of thousands. They can do sign-on bonuses, and it's usually pretty easy to get approved through systems. So that can just be a creative solution. Again, it's not as good as it going in your base because that's going to compound over time, but it can be a nice way to start with an organization.
That's great insight there, because a lot of times you sometimes see that there's sign-on bonuses listed in a job description, but you never think about the fact that you could get one even if it's not listed.
Yeah.
So that's just another way of
Definitely.
negotiating. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely
So
ask, and always, oh, sorry. I just want to mention, like, always think beyond salary too. Like, what is that total rewards? Like, some companies have great healthcare, the 401k company matches free money. So like, take a look at that entire compensation package and really know what those non-negotiables are in this stage of your career. It's going to be different, depending on what stage of your career, what stage of life you're in, and just knowing what that is and looking at that whole picture can be really helpful.
yeah, yeah. What about salary negotiation when you're already in a job, like in your current role and you're in, your annual review or whatever it is? What are your recommendations on negotiation when you're already there?
Yes, this is a great question. So, my recommendation there is understand timing. So, when are performance reviews, budget cycles? When is that for your company? And reverse engineer your timing. So you're starting conversations with your manager or HR or whoever 6 weeks, 2 months before that actually starts. So you're kind of planting seeds ahead of time and you're getting on that timing. Because if they've already planned, they've already budgeted, and you're just kind of late to the game, there might not be any wiggle room there. So first is timing. And then the other thing is gather all your contributions. So, like, what are the results? What cost savings, leadership impact, whatever have you been covering for 3 roles because they can't fill the jobs? Like, what have you done? What are your contributions? And then bring that to the table. And I remember working. I had a fabulous team. My last role in corporate, and I remember one of them came to me and said this, like, "Hey, I'd really like to talk about a salary adjustment." And she brought all the data to the table. She did some market research, and we were able to have that conversation. And we ended up putting her through for a promotion, actually. But so sometimes like starting the conversation, not making it a surprise with your manager, knowing it's a conversation. It's not going to just be like a yes or no right away. Usually there's, multiple approvals that have to happen. Same thing with salary negotiation. I should have mentioned that earlier, is it's not the recruiter making that decision. It's a hiring manager, it's an HR person, it's a compensation person, it's 2-level managers. Like, there's a lot of people involved in these conversations. So just know that, like, it's a conversation and it's going to be a continued conversation. So internally, understand timing, position it as the value that you've brought to the table, talk about an adjustment, and then see where it goes from there.
Great advice. Let's talk about, you said start planting the seeds before you get to that table where you're talking about it. What's the best way to open that door to start planting those seeds?
Yeah. So what I recommend is, if you have like a regular one-on-one with your manager, whether that's like monthly or biweekly or whatever it is, maybe just during one of those regular meetings, you could say something like, "Hey, I've been thinking a lot about my salary. I did some research. Like, could we set up a separate meeting to talk about this?" Or it could be something like, "I know performance review or mid-year reviews are coming up in the next couple of months. I'd really like to take a look at my salary and talk about an adjustment." Or it could be, if you are in that situation where you're doing like all this extra work, you could say like, "Hey, I've been doing all this extra work. We have 3 open roles on the team. I'd love to talk about if there's room for a salary adjustment." And just kind of just like, just planting that little seed, and then maybe schedule a follow-up conversation, or schedule, depending on how you like to work, your manager likes to work, your company likes to work, schedule that follow-up, like take it in your own hands. Like, don't wait for somebody else, and then go ahead and schedule that meeting and start the conversation.
Yeah, that's great. That's great advice. All right. So let's talk about the mindset and internal obstacles that people have when it comes to asking for more money. I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm sure this is part of what you do, is help people work through these So
Yeah.
maybe just tell us some stories or how you help people with that.
Yeah. So, one of the biggest myths, I think, when it comes to salary negotiation is if I ask, they're going to take the offer away from me. And that's just not true. Like, that, I have never in 20 years of HR leadership and career coaching have I ever seen an offer rescinded because somebody asked for more. That's just not going to happen. And in my experience, to rescind an offer, you have to go through legal. Like, and I've only worked at like kind of bigger organizations, but it's not just like, oh, you asked for more, so we're going to take this offer away. It cannot be done. So just knowing that myth is not true, it's okay to ask for more. And again, knowing what you want this season of your career, knowing what the offer is, and then it's a give and take, just like any negotiation. You go to the car dealer, it's going to be a give and take. And so that's where I think it's really important to know what those non-negotiables are and getting answers to those before you even get to the offer stage. And then the offer can be really simple. It could actually be everything you want, and then you can go ahead and move forward. So that's just kind of some of the background. I mean, I think the other kind of myth I would love for people to know is that recruiters do expect some type of negotiation. So it is rare that you give an offer and it's like accepted on the spot. Sometimes that happens because you've talked about it and you're really open with each other and everything is great, and that's fine. But they usually do expect some type of back and forth. And so I think like having that mindset too can also like that insider scoop in terms of like the mindset of like, oh, I should be grateful. Well, no, they're going to expect you to negotiate something, whether that's salary or not, but just be open to, kind of that back and forth. And then the other piece is like around mindset is that it doesn't have to be this combative conversation. It's a collaboration. They want you on the team. Remember that. So it's a conversation. It should be like a win-win. I don't like that language, but it really should be for both. And that's the idea of it. So there's some things that have come up, pretty frequently in conversations around salary.
So what if somebody's worried that if they ask for more and then they aren't offered more and then they just accept the offer that was on the table? What if they're worried about how they're going to be perceived after that? Like once they've started and they're like, and if they think that HR is going to be like, oh, they always wanted more.
I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't worry about that because everybody negotiates. HR, you probably won't even work with them when you start. So your team's not going to know what you're making. You know what I mean? So I think that's like in your own head, just like get over yourself and like move on because nobody's going to know. That's like totally a story you're telling yourself, and don't worry about it, and figure out how performance raises are given inside the company too. So you know what to expect going forward. So here's the other thing. Asking HR in an interview, like, hey, how is performance evaluated and what's the cycles? And like knowing that going in can be really helpful. Different companies have different philosophies around performance and pay. Some of them, everyone just gets like the same raise. Sometimes they actually do take performance into consideration. So if you're in sales, you can definitely exceed, targets and make more money. So I would just like ask all of those questions, know what to expect once you get inside that organization, and then be able to continue to grow your career.
Yeah. And I think that the get that story out of your own head is part of like what I like to talk about, because those are the mindsets and internal obstacles that we all have, is the stories we're telling ourselves in our own heads. So are there any other ones that are common that you see with your clients and people that you talk to?
So two that come to mind. So when I work with early career folks, and I had the same mindset too, it's just like, I should just be grateful for anything. Like, this company's hiring me. I'm so grateful. Like, I'll take whatever I can get. So that's one mindset. I think that's earlier in your career. And for that, I would say sometimes with early career, when you don't have as much experience, but you are bringing a fresh perspective, you are bringing, if you went to college and got a specialized degree, you are bringing something to the table. So keep that in mind. And again, maybe there's something else that you're really interested in, like working from home 2 days a week or something like that beyond salary that you want to have a conversation about. So again, it goes back to knowing your values, what you're looking for, what those non-negotiables are. And then for seasoned professionals, sometimes people think that they are too expensive. Like, oh, I've got all this experience. This company's never going to pay me what I'm worth. And they don't even apply or talk to anyone because they already have that in their head. But that's just not the case either. Trust me, I've seen all the things happen to get the right person in the door. So I would say don't talk yourself out of anything before you actually have the information to make an informed decision. So those are some mindset thoughts.
Great. I love that. Do you see patterns in how people with financial stress approach or avoid negotiation?
Um I mean, sometimes if someone is out of work for a long period of time, it could be like that, and I don't like this word, but just kind of like that desperate energy that they're bringing to the table. So I would just be conscious of that, because even though you're out of work, and especially in today's world of work with the chaos that we're living through, like it's okay if you've been out of work for a little while. Like people get that, and I'm a huge fan of career breaks and just like catching your breath and then going back into the workforce. And so I would just say, like, be confident with what you bring to the table and have the conversations before you talk yourself out of it, or kind of like let them tell you, like let them give you the information that you need to make that informed decision before you're feeling kind of anxious or coming from a place of lack or scarcity.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so action steps for the listeners. I know one of them is you said to research, know your worth. Look at, you said salary.com, and then to research the job titles in other areas. So you get an idea of where they have pay transparency, so that you have an idea of what the job range might be, but knowing that there might be a little bit of difference based on location. What are other things that people can do now to start preparing for their next salary conversation?
Yeah, a couple things. I would make your list of your accomplishments. Like that's really the biggest thing. That's how you're going to showcase your value. So make your list of accomplishments in story format, because I think that's really how you can connect the dots for a recruiter or a hiring manager, is to share stories on your value and your impact, especially if you're making a change. Know your numbers, know your walkaway number, know your non-negotiables. Like what are those non-negotiables when I look at the total rewards package? Practice, like that's sounds silly, but like practice out loud having the conversation, like practice with a friend, or even just record yourself on your phone. So when you do start the conversation, it isn't like the first time you're saying those words, like you feel that'll help build your confidence. Figure out language that works for you. I'm a huge word nerd. And I really believe that language that's coming from you is going to make a difference, because it's going to make you feel more confident. So if you're like, I don't know, if you're not comfortable, with the word, I'm a speaker, or like sharing your contributions in a certain way, figure out language. Like, okay, maybe you're not a speaker, maybe you're a teacher. Like, figure out the words that are going to resonate with you to help you add value to the conversations that you're having. So do your homework. The other website, so payscale.com, the other one is called levels.fyi. That's a really good one. It focuses on tech, but in today's world of work, like what isn't tech really? um, and then have conversations. So if you can find an online forum related to your industry, or a Slack channel, or an online group, or a local group, whatever it is, like have those conversations.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, so you help people with careers. Who needs to find you?
I really enjoy helping people make career changes. So if somebody is in an industry or a role or at a company that's just not feeling aligned, I like to help people get clarity on what's next in terms of industry, role, companies. How are you going to feel in alignment? I call it heart-based career planning. So feeling in alignment with who you are, not all the shoulds that are out there telling us what we should be doing, like really peeling back that onion, figuring out you, and then aligning you, like, and then all the practical and tactical to go and get that job. So using that insider HR knowledge to help you, land that next big role. So that's what I love doing. I have a course. It's called From Fried to Flourishing. So somebody that's just feeling completely fried, that's ready to flourish in their career. And then there's one-on-one support that goes along with that step-by-step course. Tons of freebies out there, podcasts. So all the things.
Wonderful. And then where can they find you?
My website is flourish.careers. I'm on LinkedIn, Jennifer Smith Career Coach, and then Instagram at flourish.careers and the Flourish Careers podcast.
Great. Any other resources or anything that you think that people should know, whether they're yours or someone else's?
Oh, Fearless Salary Negotiation. That is a fabulous resource. Thank you for asking that. I feel like you kind of read my mind there. Fearless Salary Negotiation is fabulous. He has a book, and then he has tons of free articles that include scripts and templates for negotiation. So I think it's fearlessSalaryNegotiation.com. We can double check that, but excellent resource.
Great. Love that. I'm going to have to check that out. Okay. So if there's one thing you want every listener to remember about knowing their worth, what would that be?
I would say, remember that nobody works for free. We're not volunteering. Negotiation is not about greed. It's about alignment and making sure your skills, your time, and your energy are matched with fair compensation. And remember that companies want you on the team.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you so much for being my guest today, Jen. It was a pleasure having you.
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks so much for listening to Real Money, Real Life. Want to see what's blocking you from financial confidence or discover your money personality? Head to the resources page at lindagrizz.com for our free quizzes. That's LINDAGRIZ.com/resources. If you're loving what you're learning, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. I'm your Me Money Guide to Financial Clarity, Linda Grizzly, and I'll catch you next time as we talk more real money, real life, because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you spend it. The content shared here is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not financial, tax, legal, or planning advice and does not constitute therapy or mental health counseling. Please consult an actively licensed and qualified professional for advice or help specific to your situation.